It's day 2 and we wake up in Damascus. We're at the Carlton, which is situated not too near the centre, right up there at the top left. And today we're going to have a quick look round Damascus. We've got a bus, fortunately, and we're going to start at the National Museum, at which we have now arrived, and it's just opposite this building. I forget whether that's the new Four Seasons Hotel or the Soviet Embassy, but just opposite there we're now in the forecourt of the museum. There's a nice collection of artifacts collected from all over Syria, and also we saw some of the original Muppets characters. These are the entrance gates to an ancient palace which were found in a heap in the middle of the desert and stuck on the front of this building by the French during their mandate. And we can't take pictures inside the museum, of course, so we're now making our way back to the bus. I'm travelling with a group this time, so it's going to be very difficult to avoid perishing tourists. Our tour guide is Yasser, and we'll be seeing more of him as we go along. This is Martyrs Square, and we may see more of that later. We're heading now for the eastern gate of the old city area, right at the end of the street called Straight. We'll see more of that church later, but here is a typical three-arched Roman entrance gate. And here's Yasser.
Renovated in the 12th century AD. There was here, in this part, a zigzag way.
Now we're going to go through the gate and take the first little street to the right. This will take us to the house of Ananias, now a chapel. This is where Ananias sheltered Paul after his arrival blind in Damascus. And here is Yasser telling us all about it. We're now going to head westwards along the street called Straight towards our next objective, which is the Azem Palace. You will see that Damascus is a very lively and vibrant place. Everybody seems to be a salesman. Well, now it's time for lunch, and we have that in a cafe that Yasser knows. And afterwards he has his shoes cleaned while everybody else looks up into the sky. In 1453 the Ottomans captured Constantinople, bringing an end to the Byzantine Empire. In 1516, near Aleppo, the Ottomans defeated the Mamluks, who had ruled Syria for 300 years. The Azem Palace was built in the middle of the 18th century by the Ottoman governor of Damascus and remained the seat of government of Syria until 1917. Syria was ruled then for 400 years as a province, not as an integral part of the empire as under the Byzantines. It should be noted that the Ottoman province of Syria included Jordan, Lebanon and Palestine, as well as the Antioch area, now part of Turkey. From the courtyard of this building we can see a church tower which has been converted to a minaret, and that's on the Great Umayyad Mosque where we're going next. The Umayyad Mosque of Damascus was built around 705 AD. It replaced a Byzantine basilica of John the Baptist, which itself had been built in the area previously occupied by a Roman temple. And before that, the site had been occupied by an Aramean temple of Hadad, dating back to the 9th century BC. It used to be said that the prayer hall which we see here was basically the old basilica modified for use as a mosque. This idea is now disputed, and there have been so many fires and much destruction over the centuries that much of what we see here now is about 19th century. There was no sudden ousting of Christianity when Islam took over around 636 AD. Indeed, much of the work on the mosque, especially the mosaics, was carried out by Byzantine craftsmen.
Separate the two columns, the column from Jupiter temple, the capital of the column.
Christians were initially allowed to continue to worship at the basilica, but in the early 8th century the Caliph al-Walid negotiated with them, took over the site for a mosque, but gave them 4 other sites for churches in the city. Just near here is another building containing the tomb of Saladin. Back outside the mosque we can see these remains of the Roman gateway to the inner court of their temple. Behind us is the main covered souk, and that's where we're going to walk along now. The whole place is stuffed to the gills with merchandise, not an empty shop in sight, and even any spare space in the middle of the street will be claimed by someone trying to sell something. Obviously they do cater for tourists here. Most of the salesmen, and they are salesmen, could get along in English, but most of the people shopping here were Syrians, I presume. Ah, look, now here's the old water seller. I think he sells Coca-Cola or something these days. We'll see more of the souks later, but we're coming out now at the other end onto this main street, and we find this equestrian statue of Saladin, which again we'll see better in a better light later on. And look, even here someone's found a bit of spare pavement in order to sell something. And that building in the background is the old citadel. Now it is possible, as you can see, to cross this road, but it's not something I would have fancied trying. Instead I've come up onto one of the many footbridges across these main roads to get a better view. Later on today we'll be going in the bus up one of those mountains to get a better view of the whole city. And even here we've got more shops and market stalls. Right, so I'm now having afternoon tea in the ecological garden next to Damascus Old Castle. Well, that cost me 150 quid at the current rate of exchange, although it was only 115 really, but I said it could keep 35 quid as a tip. We've come up the mountain now, and there's the mosque we were in earlier. Now, not so long ago, Damascus city would have ended somewhere there, and there would then be green fields leading up to this mountain base. But now the city seems to extend halfway up the mountain. So that's just about it for exploring today.